Go. Okay, hi everybody. We are back with another spotlight, and this week we are with Dr. Elizabeth Joneschild. She was on the women's soccer team and graduated with a degree in biology in 1992, and now she is a hand surgeon who works in Seattle. So we're gonna get started, start her story from the beginning, and I think you guys will love meeting her. Okay, so Elizabeth, can you tell us, I guess starting from the beginning, when did you know that you wanted to go into medicine?
Well, my dad was a pediatrician. So I think that was the baseline of, yeah, my dad's a doctor. Well, hey, I'll be a doctor too. I think that we also had a dog, and I loved my dog. And I think there were moments when I thought maybe I'll do veterinary medicine. But as I made my way through high school, I had planned to go to medical school. And this is going to sound a little far-fetched, but there are some hydroplane races in Seattle called Seafair. And my dad's friend from medical school, who was an orthopedic surgeon, invited myself and my dad to Seafair. And it's a summertime event, and the city celebrates. And Brad, who was my dad's friend, was the pit doctor. So I got to go with him to Seafair, and I decided, well, Brad is more cool than my dad, so I'm going to be an orthopedic surgeon and not a pediatrician. So when I was third grade, that's when I got it in my mind that that's what I was going to do.
That is such a good story. Yeah, he's cooler than my dad. I'll do that.
And I think, I always loved sports, and I played sports all year round in high school. I, was a 3-sport athlete on top of soccer, and just was certain that this was going to be my calling, because I was an athlete and I wanted to work with athletes, and orthopedics seemed to fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then going through high school and into college, how did you pick your major and kind of all the stuff that you were going to do in preparation for your orthopedics career?
Right. So, I don't know how much thought went into choosing my major, which was biology. Mm-hmm. Aside from the fact that I loved the sciences, but I also loved like literature. And I basically said, okay, I've got pre-med requirements, and the major that covers most of the pre-med requirements and gives me an opportunity to do more other fun classes is biology. So I chose biology so that the rest of my education could be more. I think I thought about human biology, and I had a lot of friends who did that, but bio just worked, and it was the overlap. So pre-med requirements got checked off, the major requirements got checked off. And then I took some awesome lit classes.
Sounds really cool. And then how was it for you being an athlete and pursuing the medical route, like while you were in high school, college?
It was fine. It was, I think that as an athlete, you end up being so structured because your time is so valuable. And so, you've got practice. I remember, training room, getting my ankles taped at 2:30, right, to get out to practice by 3 and 3 to 5, and then you go home. And so you've got that chunk of, 3 to 4 hours out of your day. And I was pretty disciplined. But I think, athletics almost helped to structure your schedule so that, it organized your life in a way that almost made it easier. I wasn't, let's just say, I wasn't just hanging out in the dorm, shooting the breeze with my roommate, right? I
Mhm.
was on my way home for a shower and dinner and off to Green,
Mhm.
probably somewhat nerdish, but it's the way that's the way I got it done, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And then, so then med school, you attended Duke. How was the admissions process, like choosing a med school? How's all that for you?
Okay, well, we can back up a little bit because
Yeah.
during college, and I don't know if I can blame it on soccer, but I did not that I just didn't get my act together to do my MCATs in time to apply my senior year.
Mhm.
So I decided to take a gap year.
Mhm.
And back then, gap years, like, they didn't exist. They didn't exist
Yeah.
between high school and college, and they definitely didn't exist between college and med school for most people.
Mhm.
My dad was concerned. My dad was concerned that I was going off the rails, right? Like I was never going to get to med school. But I actually came back home to Seattle. I lived with my parents and I worked at Children's Hospital
Mhm.
as a secretary on the wards. Like literally, I was answering phones, I was taking orders, I was finding nurses, I was, and I was afloat. So I went to all the floors on the hospital. And it was a great year because I actually just like stepped back for a moment and worked and had time to study for the MCATs and take the MCATs and do all the applications. And then when it came time for interviewing, I just, it really, it was great. It was a
Mhm.
great way to do it. So I, and in the long run, did that 1 year really matter? No, if you're going to take this path and you're going to go do medical school, and then for me, 5 years of orthopedic residency, and then add a fellowship on top of it, you're going to be old when you finish. You're going to be old when you start making any money. And the 1 year just doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So I would encourage people to, because, I think it gave me time to enjoy college or at the end of school. And then my year at home, it was good. And it also gave me the experience of being, around medicine. I got to know a bunch of pediatric residents who worked in the hospital, understood what it's like to be on call, every 3 nights or, and what it's like to work in a hospital. So that was very valuable.
Mhm.
I can't tell you, or I don't remember how many schools I applied to. I remember going to lots of interviews, but and all over the country. I basically just like kind of threw the net out. I ended up at Duke because my brother was an undergrad at Duke. So
Mhm.
my first year of med school happened to be his senior year of college.
Oh,
And
so you overlapped.
yeah, so we overlapped and we were very good friends. And so it was perfect.
Mhm.
And Duke is a lot like Stanford in that it's a very, like, if you're on the Duke campus, you have a reason, you're part of the Duke community, much like Stanford, whereas it's not like in the middle of a big city.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed that.
Mhm.
And I also
Yeah, and
had
then how
sorry,
there you
I
go.
had a great sort of connection with soccer because my junior year of college, I broke my leg. playing a game against Duke at Duke. And so I actually had my orthopedic care at Duke, and then flew home and et cetera, and then end up there for med school. And I decided I wanted to maybe train with the Duke team if I could. And so I walked into the, Duke head coach's office and said, "Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I was at Stanford soccer player who broke her leg on your field." And they were both like, "Oh, we remember that. Oh, that was so horrible." Right. And then I actually ended up training with the Duke team, which was amazing. And I ended up on a local semi-professional soccer team. Semi-professional just means like they paid for travel, with a bunch of ex-Carolina players. And it was great. It may not have been.
That sounds amazing.
Yes, it may not have been so good for my academics, because we would travel on the weekends. And then my first year of med school, I had exams on Mondays.
Oh.
But anyway, I graduated from medical school. So
yeah, you
my
did.
grades may not have been the best, but I passed. So.
And then going through medical school, were you just even more affirmed that you really wanted to go into orthopedics?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Duke Medical School is unique in that your first year extends like a year and a half. So you do academics, like classroom work, for like a year and a half. And then before you end up, doing your rotations, you do a whole year of research. And so because I wanted to do orthopedics, I actually worked in an orthopedic lab for that year, and got to know the chief of orthopedics was the head of my lab. His name was Dr. Urbanik, and he was like my, mentor. And so, yeah, I mean, I was just going along this pathway of, I actually never wavered at all. So it was good. And when I did the work in the orthopedic lab, not only did I get to know him, I got to know some of the orthopedic residents who would, as I then went through medical school prior to matching there for residency, I got to know them as well. So it was.
Yeah, that sounds like a great, you just kept going on this journey.
Yes.
You can trace it all the way back to third grade.
Yes.
What would you say was like the hardest part about med school? Was there any part?
Oh, I mean, I think that as you progress, every year it's you end up in a group of people who are just that kind of blow you away, right? Like you get to Stanford and you're just blown away about all this talent. And then you get to medical school and it's the exact same thing, right? And you think that your hard work ethic in high school, college is what gets you there. Well, then you get to med school and you're like, wow, this is just talent, uber talent. So, it's a lot of work, but those friendships are, amazing. And the hardest part, it's just like maintaining that, like trying to keep up, right? Because you're just surrounded by lots of really, really talented people. I found Durham a little challenging when I first got there. It's very different. I grew up in Seattle. I went to school in California, and the South is a whole different world. And the South in 1993 was a whole different world compared to what it is now. So
yeah,
that was hard. I lived in North Carolina then for 9 years, and I grew to love North Carolina. And I have nothing but warm, fuzzy feelings for it. But the beginning was a little hard. It's culture, it's food, it's weather, it's just a different place. Yeah. But
Totally.
that is also so educational and enriching, right? To learn to live in that environment, right? Different
Yeah.
opinions, different demographics, different everything, vocabulary. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were there for 9 years. So you did your residency also at Duke, right?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Yeah.
I
And so
did.
how was that? How was picking, going through that process,
Okay.
getting a
Well,
residency?
full disclosure, I did not rank Duke first. I had a boyfriend in California, and I ranked UCSF first because I wanted to be with him, even though the orthopedic program was probably better at Duke. Duke was my second choice. And the day I got my match results, I was devastated. It was like the worst day of my life. I remember sitting on my, condo floor in tears. The residency director called me and it was like, "Congratulations, Elizabeth, you are, and I was like, ugh. And then of course, in retrospect, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And my orthopedic residency group was fantastic. Yeah. So, but I really have this feeling that it all works out, right? You think you know where you want to go, but maybe, obviously, had I gone to UCSF, it may have all worked out. But probably just like college, if you had ended up somewhere else, it would have been good also. So that was, yes. So it started out in my mind horrible, and it ended up fantastic.
And so, yeah, how was the residency? How was starting orthopedics?
How was residency?
Everything you
So
hoped and dreamed?
Duke residency, your internship year is very hard. And things have changed so much because I'm an old fart, right? I mean, yes, I am. So, we had no hour restrictions. We were on call every third night. And when we were on call, we didn't really sleep. So it was hard. It was hard. But it was expected that was just the way it was. So Dr. Sabiston was the head of general surgery, or had just retired, and he was very strict. There were lots of rules, which, rules are there for a reason, I guess. So internship was very hard. Residency was hard, but good. I, as the, there were 8 residents in my class. And I do have very strong opinions about size of your residency class. I actually am the opinion that the bigger your class, the better off you are, because if there's one bad egg out of 8, it gets very diluted, right? But if there's one bad egg out of 4, because it is such, like bringing this back to athletics, right? How does my athletics help me with residency, right? It's a team sport, like the 8 of you, though you're not always working together, you're always working with someone a year or 2 above you. And that team concept, like we're doing this collectively together. And if you have one who's really not pulling their weight, it brings everybody down. So, in terms of residency, being surrounded by, 90% your co-residence guys and your attendings, all of them men.
Mhm.
I think it's really important to do a good job, right? And guess what? If you do a good job, they're going to respect you. And then there just aren't issues. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or you're a man, you just have to do a good job.
Mhm.
And so I just worked hard to be the best resident I could be, the most responsible, do the right thing. And I had people ahead of me who taught me that, or taught me how to do that. And if you just strive toward that, then I really had very few issues with being a female amongst a lot of men.
Mhm.
So it was hard, but it was great.
Mhm. Did you have any mentors like that were super helpful?
So Dr. Urbanik, he was the head of the lab that I did my research in.
Mhm.
And he was always a very strong supporter of women. There was a woman a year ahead of me in residency, and then one 3 years ahead of me. And he just promoted, he always used to say, oh, you or the women, they're better than the guys anyhow. We need more of you, right?
Mhm.
So I still stay in touch with him. I'm in this group called the Duke Hand Club that gets together every 3 years. And,
Mhm.
it's a both academic meeting and social meeting. And
Mhm.
he still comes, and he's in his 80s and he's amazing. So Dr. Bannock is my number one mentor. He's a hand surgeon. So but there are many others
Mhm.
along the way, or within, who also Duke faculty who believed in me, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And then how did you choose hand surgery after
Yeah, so
orthopedics?
that is actually kind of a funny story. So I had, in third grade, no intention of being a hand surgeon, and really did not even think of hand surgery, or didn't even know really it existed, probably until I hit orthopedics. So I was
Mhm.
always, I'm working with athletes. Athletes are young, athletes are healthy, athletes want to get back out on the field. And then once I did my sports rotation, a lot of the surgery associated with sports medicine is
Mhm.
arthroscopic surgery, right? So
Mm.
knee arthroscopy, shoulder arthroscopy. Now, people do even hip arthroscopy.
Mhm.
And arthroscopy involves your hands on the instrument and you looking at a TV screen, right,
Mhm.
to perform your surgery. And that was not something that I enjoyed doing at all.
Mhm.
Not maybe didn't enjoy it. My brain just was not good at it.
Mhm.
It just was like, wow, I'm definitely not going to do this for the rest of my life. Right. So
Mhm.
then I had to come up with a subspecialty of orthopedics.
Mhm.
And I think some of my favorite mentors, so Dr. Bannock, Dr. Goldner, were hand surgeons, and I just had the most fun with them. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, guess I'm going to do hand surgery. So
Mhm.
that didn't happen until probably my 4th year of residency.
Mhm.
And so that's how I ended up in hand surgery,
Mhm.
because I did not like sports surgery.
Yeah. And so how do you like it now? What's life like
Oh,
as a hand surgeon?
so hand surgery is the best. And the reason why it's the best is that you get to work with all age groups.
Mhm.
right? So I take care of 2-year-olds and I take care of 92-year-olds.
Mhm.
Hand surgery is also multidisciplinary, meaning that obviously trauma, I take care of fractures, hand
Mhm.
fractures, wrist fractures, finger fractures, but patients also cut their tendons. And so I operate on tendons, and they cut their nerves, and I operate on nerves. And
Mhm.
so there's just like tons of diversity, as
Mhm.
opposed to, let's say you do total joints, right? People who need knee replacements and hip replacements are a little bit more of the same demographic, right?
Mhm.
They're old enough to have arthritis, and they have high blood pressure, and they might be deconditioned, and so like
Mhm.
the patient population is more similar, whereas
Mhm.
I find hand surgery to be great because it is so diverse.
Mhm. Totally.
Yeah.
And then I guess just on a broader, um, like a larger scale, like just life as a doctor, was it all worth it? All the years of
Oh,
feeling
I
like,
mean, yes. Okay. So what is so let's say, if you had talked to me when I graduated college,
Mhm.
okay, and you said, well, what does the next 30 years look like, right?
Mhm.
Um, I would have said, okay, I'm going to go to med school and I'm doing orthopedics and I'm going to get married and I'm going to have a family and I'm going to have 2 kids and okay. Uh, I didn't end up getting married until I was 40. So I didn't have my first or a child until I was almost 42.
Mhm.
And would I have designed it that way? Maybe not, right? Like, you're older, so that's good. So now I have an almost 10-year-old.
Mhm.
And most of my sort of contemporaries have kids in college, graduating from college, right? So I think you just have to realize that if you commit yourself to medicine and you commit yourself to, for example, orthopedics or a field of medicine that does require, sort of more intense or longer training, and it doesn't have to happen that way. There are plenty of
Mhm.
of my co-residents. Clearly, their wives were having children, but their families are younger.
Mhm.
Um, and I think now I think there's more acceptance for having children during residency.
Mhm.
But it is, you just have to take each day at a time and say, hey, okay, this is how my life is. But I don't know that I would have predicted, my frame shift in sort of life and family
Mhm.
when I started out, or would have thought that would be the way it should be. Right. And
Mhm.
we decided not to have another child for many reasons. But sometimes I'm like, oh, you know, my son doesn't have a sibling. Like, I had a best friend in my brother, and that's why I ended up at Duke. Right. So,
Mhm.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it can
Totally.
still all be good, even if it's
Mhm.
different than maybe what you envisioned when you started out on this journey.
Mhm. Yeah. Then I guess, what do you think is your favorite part about like where your career in medicine has led you and kind of where you're at
Yeah.
right now,
I
day to
mean,
day?
the favorite part is that you you get to interact with people, right?
Mhm.
And all kinds of people. And whether that can sometimes lead to stress or conflict, or
Mhm.
I mean, like the pandemic, right? The last 2 years has been
Mhm.
all over the place, right? And even now with Omicron, trying to come up with what are our policies and how do we take care of our patients? How do we interact with our patients? How do we keep everyone safe? It's not easy, right? It's challenging, but yet it's a collective experience, really. Taking care of people is not one way. It's a two-way exchange, and that's pretty cool. I mean, even yesterday, I saw a patient in clinic, a 70-year-old aeronautics professor at the University of Washington, who told me that he brought his son to see me. He said 20 years ago. Now, I've only been in practice 18 years, so it wasn't 20 years, but it was probably 15 years ago. He was like, I brought my 10-year-old son in here to see you because he had pain playing the piano. And I was so impressed by you that I'm coming back to you now because I've got this bump on my finger. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's
really cool,
right?
Yeah, totally.
And he remembered what I told him about my high school and where his kids subsequently went to high school, right? Like, it's that 6 degrees of separation that just fuels me. I love it.
That's so incredible. Yeah, and then I guess before we wrap up, just wanted to ask you if there's anything I missed that you wanted to add.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I'd want to add is that although pandemic has been kind of a challenge and difficult for all of us, the one bright spot, or one of the bright spots out of this pandemic, is that my Stanford soccer team has become the most tight-knit group ever. We started meeting on Zoom, like I'm not even sure when, but we almost have had monthly gatherings with anywhere from 6 to 18 of us on one Zoom call. And we started a book club. And I guess my point is that your Stanford teammates are your friends for life. And it is just so special. It's like, again, realizing this talent or these friendships that you're in the same place for 4 years, and that's amazing. But like what it can bring 30 years later is just as special. So
that's so cool that it came around full circle.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for interviewing with us today. I'm sure everyone is going to love this, and I hope that a bunch of people will reach out to you for mentoring because you rock. So yeah, thank you so much.
I would love it. Okay.